I'm Toby,
And I'm DK.
and welcome back to Tangents Encouraged. We're going to be going over homebrew and how to implement it, that type thing.
Yes, where tangents are encouraged. Indeed.
So, I have so many homebrew things. I have so many places that I get ideas from, including just staring off into nothingness.
For sure.
Um,
Absolutely daydreaming.
hmm Sure, if you want to call it that. No. But where do you want to start? Do you want to start off with examples? Do you want to start off where we get ideas from?
Um, yeah, I guess more ideas. I mean, how do you get to. Let's talk about how we get to homebrew in general. So, homebrew materials. Yeah, let's talk about homebrew materials first. I do want to talk about homebrew rules as
Mm-hmm.
well. But let's start with the materials. Like, where do you get your inspiration from? And, like, how do you, start? Or even why? I think sometimes there could be a why. Why did you make this thing?
Yeah. So I think the majority of the why is either A, something doesn't exist in D&D
Hmm.
yet and I want it in there, or B, I don't know about it and I make something that's similar but different, or C, there's something in D&D that I don't like and I want it to be different.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
um and I think it's mostly A and C for me. Um but a lot of my inspiration comes from like just cool artwork I see,
Yeah.
um, like that, or music is also a big inspiration for me. It could be literally any song, and they'll just be like one chunk of words. I'll be like, that is now the basis of an NPC that they'll probably run into at some point, that
Yes.
type thing, or other video games, that type thing. Like now it's becoming more canon, third party, like Dark Souls, that type thing, and
Okay.
implementing stuff like that. Or, I mean, everything's made up in D&D. What's wrong with making up more stuff
Yeah.
and add it? But I like just adding stuff for flavor,
Hmm.
It's fun.
Yeah, I would say pretty much the same. A lot of media, exposed to a lot of media where it can be like, hey, they have this certain weapon or they're doing this kind of magic. I find that a lot actually. It would be like, um, so the Avatar, The Last Airbender, shameful that you don't know this, anything about this. Get at him in the comments. Get him alive.
I watched episode 1, thank you.
Okay. But they'll do something in there like controlling the elements or like a certain way they do it. Um, like whips with fire or something like that. Is there a fire whip
Mm-hmm.
in D&D? I don't think so, not currently.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you end up then making something like that. Sometimes it just goes into notepad on your phone where it's
Yep.
just a list of things, and
Yep.
sometimes it actually gets implemented at the table.
And you talking about Airbender, actually like listing something made me remember back when I was working at my previous job. I had to go and inspect things that had been quite literally heisted. So, like, someone broke into a safe and stole a bunch of money,
Oh,
that
okay.
type of thing. And we also got briefed on, like, people robbing, like, armored cars, that type thing.
Mm.
And I went, you know what you never see in D&D or any of the modules? Like, yeah, there's caravan, like, people stop caravans and rob them, that type of thing. Coin is still flowing throughout the kingdom in official capacities. There's banks, there's, all that type of thing.
Yeah.
You never hear about bank heists. You never hear about, like the vaults getting hit, that type
Yeah,
thing,
for
or
sure.
like the actual armored caravans getting hit and that type thing. That would be an awesome intro to like fourth to sixth level
Yeah.
characters. Hey, the flow of money isn't making it into your area anymore. Your city's suffering because of it. That type thing. Figure it out. Bring back the economy to this section of the map. And I think that'd be really cool. So I created like, um, if you've ever seen like the logo for Wells Fargo, like the carriage and everything like
Yes.
that, they have the guy up on top and all that. So I started having those every like 1d4 weeks in my game. They would go through and blah blah blah, do that type thing. So that's something that one, the players can go hit and try to get money, or two, they can run into one of them getting hit and try to stop it.
Yeah.
That type thing. And those are in real life they're called cash in transit. So I'm just like, coin in transit, sure, why not?
Oh wow. There you go.
So it's still CIT, and yeah, like just I took my real world job and I'm like, it needs to be in my game now.
Yes. There you go.
And it's just like one mundane thing that just flushes out the world a little bit more.
Yeah, and I mean, even just putting in homebrew, like little tweaks to your world like that can really make the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you don't realize, like if you're just driving around town, you've probably seen armored trucks
Oh yeah.
pretty frequently. Like they go through town like every day, everywhere. Money needs to get picked up and it needs to get dropped off everywhere. So it's something you're going to run into. But
So let me see here.
and that was just an example of like the mundane. You can also homebrew like crazy stuff,
Oh, yeah, for
spells,
sure.
that type thing. But like just trickling in your own homebrew, just mundane things flushes out the area of the world that much more.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, you end up with these generic, really generic kind of fantasy villages, without any sense or
I'm Farmer Pete.
yeah.
The next villager, I'm Farmer Steve.
Yeah. So, what kind of homebrew do you have? What kind of homebrew
Everything.
have you made up?
Everything. Okay. Let's
Subclasses? Have you made any subclasses?
I've made 4 entire classes.
Oh yes, I do remember this.
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
And each one had 2 subclasses. Let's see. Let's bring up my notes. D&D ideas. Just right off the bat, this is, I guess, should we do kind of sneak previews of what we might be writing, or save that for that?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to just mention, I mean, I wouldn't go too in depth on it, but sure.
Sure. Ball of Disintegration.
Okay. Like you throw it or
Think Fireball, but
oh
add Disintegration to it.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
It's that much damage.
Interesting.
That's a lot of damage.
Okay. Yeah. So how did you come up with the spell? You just were like,
I literally went, Fireball is countered by a lot of things. My favorite spell is Disintegration.
okay, fair enough.
And yeah, we'll get into that at another point at some point. I don't know if you saw the next line of text.
No.
The next line of text for my homebrew ideas is a giant gorilla riding a giant T-Rex.
I mean, that's awesome.
I mean, you just got to get it in there, right? And then my very next line is, homebrew changes to campaigns. The vampire, spoilers, the vampire son or whatever that's in the basement of the church.
Yes.
I changed him to a demigod that is stuck in the basement of the church. And
wow. That's a pretty big change.
It's a big change.
Yeah. Okay.
And he becomes sane and free once they defeat Strahd.
Okay.
And helps them do that type of thing. I also added a bunch of lodestones. There's 4 lodestones throughout Curse of Strahd, and if they can bring all 4 back to the castle once they've gotten it, they now have their own plane of existence that they can move around to different planes.
Okay.
So I had a whole plan on that. Never finished it because that group broke up, but I had lots of ideas for. They were going to get
so homebrewing the full module basically.
Yeah. Like, man, I was so excited for this. But have you ever played? You just recently got a PC to play on, didn't you? Or have you played on PC for a while?
No.
There's a game. It's like Baldur's Gate, but in my opinion, way more in depth. Which Baldur's Gate is crazy in depth as it is. It's not Path of Exiles. It's also a PoE. Pillars of Eternity.
Pillars of Eternity. I've played that. Yeah.
You know the one keep that you get and you can like invest your money and build up.
That part of the game.
That's what it was going to be. That entire realm was going to then, once they got all 4 lodestones all repaired and everything like that, was going to place itself back into the real world, and that was your kingdom now.
Nice.
Everyone's dead and gone.
Yeah.
Like the time would rush, the stone would crumble and that type of thing, but you can now start investing in it, that type of thing. So that's what my plan was with that. But you could tell I was thinking about a lot about Curse of Strahd right here. Yes. Frank, also known as Frankenstein, was going to be just a helper inside the castle that loved everyone. The 4 lodestones. This is how long ago my guy that I guess I won't be playing anymore, my Warforged champion, this was back... I had the idea for him 5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Literally, Warforged fighter champion that has all of his weapons already integrated into him. Just all that nonsense. I think I've told you about the Necklace of Limitations. It's like a mage counter thing where you reduce... If not, that's definitely going to be in the thing. That's also another thing. Okay. Banks and Cash in Transit. There's a old game called Myth. Myth of Fallen Lords, Myth Soulblighter. I think Myth 3. I don't remember what that one was. Just all the units from that. Just real good. That type of thing. I saw artwork of a floating island firing a laser that was just boring through a planet, and I went, yep, wrote that one down.
Oh boy, Pinterest for homebrew ideas.
Oh, it's dangerous.
Yeah, could be there for a while. Sometimes I get lost in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, and this, and I just add all the pins.
There's a song called Ghost Keeper that I based a whole graveyard off of. Oh, this one's fun.
Yeah.
This can happen anywhere. If you stand between 2 perfect mirrors that take up full length of the walls that they are sitting on and stand in the exact right center spot, you'll be transported into the mirror dimension.
Oh, wow.
No way back.
Oh. Snap.
So it's, it's a decent trap.
That's a trap, all right.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen 13 Ghosts? It's an oldie.
Yes and no.
Oldie. I just straight up for the Curse of Strahd campaign said use all 13 ghosts from 13 Ghosts inside of his castle.
Okay.
I've put the Headless Horseman in my games. Oh, the floating doorknob. I love this magic item I've made.
Alright, now you gotta tell us.
So the floating doorknob. It literally, when the players come upon it, it's just sitting in the middle of a room not attached to anything, right? If opened, it creates a rift in space to a location. If you attune to it, you can take it with you and use it. It takes 10 minutes to affix the doorknob into its location, and then you choose a location that you know or can see within 120 feet. When you open the door, it opens a rift in a semi-permanent dimension. It opens a rift as if a semi-permanent dimension door spell between those 2 points. The rift is removed when the doorknob is removed as well, which also takes 10 minutes. Or the exit location of the rift is changed, which also takes 10 minutes. So literally you can put this doorknob, for example, right here. It takes 10 minutes to put it there. Then you open this door, and the doorway would open up to you, exiting right there, or your car door, whatever you wanted type thing. And it requires attunement, and it's only 140-foot range. It's not crazy powerful, but it's really good for infiltration.
Yeah.
And opening and closing the other door, unless this door is open, just acts as normal.
Okay.
So.
Interesting.
Just little things, not broken or anything like that.
Right, of course. Most of the homebrew I come up with, it's just like, in my newest homebrew campaign, there's going to be, there's a popular product, and I imagine it comes in like those really just like old perfume bottles where it's like a small jar, and then it has like the...
what are those things called?
the 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 like pump on it.
Yeah.
Kind of off of it. I don't know if it has a.
There's an actual name.
Okay.
It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember it.
But essentially, in my homebrew, it's a magic item called Presto. You can buy it at the store. It's a pretty common thing. And it just casts prestidigitation.
That's beautiful.
In the cleaning way, just on things that you spray it on.
Is it a decanter? No, decanters.
No, it's not a decanter. Yeah, I mean, mainly coming up with like spells and subclasses. I don't really worry about too much on balancing. It's just like if there's something I feel that's missing in the game that trying to add, or just like you said, just coming up with weird things from inspiration. Just you see something and it's interesting, that something that could be in the world. Yeah, there's a lot of times where I'm just writing stuff down and I never use it.
It's an atomizer.
An atomizer. Okay, I guess that makes sense. It's like an old school atomizer.
Yeah.
How about let's move on to homebrew rules. So things you have at the actual table that are outside of the world.
So the number one that I run into, and you've seen this when I DM, the very first thing that happens after the first session, is we do a recap. I don't do the recap. Y'all do the recap.
Yes.
100%. Yep. It makes the players have to pay attention more, which is great. Generally, that makes them start taking notes. And 3, this is the important one, if you lead the recap or do the recap on your own, I used to only do, you just get a DM inspiration die. So I give you a d20, you can make me, someone else, anything you in the game have to reroll a die and you take the higher. So the bonus about this one is, say you have disadvantage and you roll, you can go, I want to use this one, roll. Now out of 3 dice, you get to pick the highest one.
That's how I do mine. I do that.
So your disadvantage is now super advantage.
Yes.
But I started doing something, I do that as well, but something I do is I have them do the recap and then I go, okay, roll a d20. Evens, you get the d20. Odds, you get a coin. The coin is, and the d20 acts exactly the same. The coin is, you get to pick any roll that you see or do, and it can be an enemy roll, party roll, whatever, your own roll. And you say, no, that's a 20, or no, that's a 1. So it can be anything. And it's come very in handy. One of my players, their NPC brother, had done 2 failed death saving throws, and they got hit with another splash from one of the corrupted goblins blowing up. That's an instant fail.
Right.
Or no. That's what caused them to take 2.
Yep.
I rolled a natural 1, so technically 2 fails, they would have died. And not the person, because she didn't do the recap, someone else went, no, that's a 20. So instead of being a natural 1, brought her brother back to 1 hit point, saved him.
Nice.
Which, great role play.
Yes.
Role play. It was a very intense moment, but it was, I think, one of the cooler uses I've seen of it. I've also seen people use it where they were fighting a big bad, and the fight wasn't going well, and they had 2 people buff them up. Then they did like a smite on top of one of their attacks, and then when they landed the hit, they went, no, that's a 20, and just nuked them,
Yes.
And there's so many useful things. Or I've had them where a big bad is hitting someone, and they go, nope, that's a 1, you miss. It's a very useful tool.
Yeah, and I mean, especially when they're using it like that, not just on something silly, but like something that'll like really hype the whole table up, or like that really gets you going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, homebrew stuff can be anything real small to anything real big. So, I mean, that's something I do as well, is the recap inspiration. I kind of got a range of things here. Skills, there's a few skills I've added in the game, or like at points we'll add in the game. Like technology is a new one that I'm going to be implementing here, where it's another intelligence skill is basically just a knowledge skill. I really wish they would just bring knowledge back from 3.0, 3.5, where you could have knowledge in a bunch of different things, like anything. But even like different familiars, where they're like, oh, I want this familiar instead of that. I have someone
I guess that is technically homebrew if you start.
Yeah, it's homebrew ruling. Yeah.
Yeah. So my druids, so homebrew rules for my druids, I let them at level. When can they start shapeshifting? Is it 1 or 2?
It's 2.
So at level 2, they can have flight and swimming speeds.
Swimming speed.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, just like anything like that can make
it's
the
not
game.
it's not gonna break the game. It's really not. Like at level 2, you can be a 1/4 CR, right?
Yes.
1/4 CR anything has no hit points, especially things with flying speeds.
Yeah.
They'll have what, 2?
1.
Yeah.
Must have 1.
Okay, so your druid is 60 feet in the air. Someone does like hideous laughter on it, and at that point it has a con of 3.
Yeah.
So it fails.
Splats.
Turns back into themselves and then
Yeah.
falls 60 feet, taking 6d6 damage. They're dead at level 2 at that point. It's not going to break the game.
No. And, some of those things they put in there for new DMs, new players.
Mm-hmm.
So it does come a little bit easier when you are experienced with that kind of thing, because at any point I could just say a meteor hits the planet you're on and it explodes into a million pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Killing everyone.
Yep.
I could just say that at any
Yep.
point. So the balancing, I just kind of like to let people do their thing, Instead of having one of these listed familiars, you could have a flying dog or a flying cat. I know someone has their mount, their summoned mount. What's it called? Fine steed. Isn't a horse. It's a giant lizard.
I like that.
Just because it's like,
My druids can also be plants. I let them take any of the
I
plant.
love that. I'm actually working on a subclass for that.
Really?
Specifically, yes.
Interesting.
Where you could turn into plants instead of just beasts. Because there's not enough plant integration. So that's an example of something that's missing in the game. A plant druid. Where is our plant druid?
Yeah. Honestly, a lot of the casting side druids aren't the best. Like.
Yep. That's why I also made my elemental.
Which I do want to take a peek at.
Yeah, I got that on my phone.
Perfect.
I'll show you after. So I mean, homebrewing can really be anything. So like the rolling method you use to create your stats in the beginning of the game, or homebrew rules regarding rolls in general.
Completely forgot that.
Does it count if you try to roll on the tray and it rolls on the table?
Nope.
Does that count?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, maybe me neither. You're trying to get in the tray. That's where it rolls.
Yep.
Because if it didn't,
and it's better,
you take it, and if it's worse,
you're picking it up.
Yep, for sure, 100%. Off the ground is the same thing.
Yep.
All that kind of stuff. I implement as homebrew rules, which a lot of this stuff should go back into your session 0. Make sure you mention it there, that these are the rules that you have. Variant spellcaster abilities. I've thought about this too as homebrew rules. So it depends on exactly what class. I think Warlock could do any of the 3 mental stats. As far as a spellcasting ability, I think sorcerers could use Constitution.
Sure. Force of will. Yep.
I guess that's really all I can think of off the top of my head, but those 2 in general.
Sorcerers could use any of them, intelligence or wisdom, right?
I guess, yeah.
Depending on what subclass, I guess.
Yeah. But I see it more as I guess I really don't understand why it is charisma and force of will.
They describe it as, like, for example, if you take the Draconic Blood, I mean, that should be your con.
Right.
But, like, the other one is just your sheer, force of will to manipulate, basically, the ether around you, and which is charisma,
I guess that way.
But
at the same time, I think if you're harnessing I guess that has to do with how the magic is in your world. Because I imagine some sorcerers manipulate the magic because they have the ability to just do it from within them.
Yep.
But I also think of some of them, like X-Men mutants, where they just genuinely have some power coming from within them. And I think that's where you could use something like Constitution, instead of charisma. And then another thing that I have here is crit fail rules, or crit success rules. So does a D20 always a critical success in rules as written? It only matters on attack rolls.
Yep.
20 is always a critical hit, and 1 is always a miss.
Yeah, which is interesting because then, like, the natural 20 for critting attacks, that's kind of been a thing for a long time. You know, crit, you no matter what you hit, and you get something special on top. You know, like you double your die or whatever. But like the natural one for automatic misses, well, now we're running into an issue with certain classes that get things like reliable talent, where if you're proficient in it, the lowest roll is a 10. So would that mean a rogue that's level 11 or whatever will never miss again?
Well, rules as written, a 1 on a skill check is not an automatic fail.
Yes, but it does it stay specifically skill checks?
Yeah, I believe it's for skill checks.
No, for not for what you're saying, but I'm talking about reliable talent.
Yes.
It does? Okay.
I'm pretty sure reliable talent is only for skill checks.
Okay. Well, that would
If it's not, maybe it says ability checks, but that does not include attack rolls.
But that's an ability check.
No, it's not. An attack roll is not an ability check.
How isn't it? You're using your ability to make the attack.
They wrote the rules. I did. I'm just saying what the rules are saying.
Could you imagine never being able to roll? Like, because like at level 11, to hit, you're at like plus 11 to 15, depending on your weapon, you know?
Yeah, that's why crit fails can sometimes be weird. And I personally don't go outside of raw. So I'm like homebrew, anti-homebrew against the homebrew. Because most people play where 20 is always success on all saving throws and skill checks. And 1s are always fails. But I don't adhere to it outside of attack rolls. And even in attack rolls, it's a little weird, but you know, the critical hit is such a I don't even know, iconic thing that you kind of just go with it.
I mean, it's so fun. Like,
well, absolutely.
Yes, you know.
Especially your rogue or paladin, you're like,
exactly. Just half the table collapses from the amount of dice.
I actually fireballed the table.
Yeah. But man, like that's a tough decision. But so there's like crit and fumble tables for like that type of thing.
That's
which
another thing.
They're not. What are they?
Optional rules?
There we go. The optional rules. Yeah. And,
essentially homebrew.
Well, and what's really weird is like one of the things is you break your weapon.
Yeah.
What happens when you have a magical weapon that you just didn't crit fail right there?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
I also don't use the tables. I used to use the tables back in 3.0, but you know, I like to use tables before I actually get to the table. So to have tables that I'm having to roll at the table. I just said table 20 times in a row, but I hope you understand what I meant, but I don't like to roll on extra tables while I'm at the table, so I don't want to have this fumble table. So
that's also something I bring up during session 0 is, do you guys want crits? And I don't do crit successes on checks and stuff like that and saves. I only do it on attacks. And if you want that, do you want critical fails? Well, a 1's going to always miss, but then I also bring up, do you want fumble tables? And it would affect both them and the enemy. So, and most of the time they go, what's a fumble table? And I go, so a fumble table is basically, normally, like the actual fumble table has like catastrophic things, you know, like your weapon breaks, that type thing. The way I do it is like you hyperextend your elbow and you know you have disadvantage on your attacks for the next turn type thing. Or if an enemy does it, they might have that, or they'll leave themselves exposed because they swung too hard.
Do you have this on a table, or you just off the top of your head when it happens?
Generally on the top of my head.
Okay, see, sometimes I do this. Not always does a crit fail do something. Usually it just has to be something that is just like, the way you described something is usually what I backpack off of to say, oh, well. And
that also goes to, do your character or your players like describing certain things? So, like, if they roll a natural 20 and they immediately go, yeah, you know, I'm coming in and I'm, you know, chopping off their hand, blah, 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 that type of thing, that's how they're describing their landing their critical hit. I'm like, sure. Yeah. Like, they just chopped off their hand. They don't have a shield anymore. Their AC goes down by 2, you know?
Oh, well, yeah.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Or, you know, they just lost their hand. They're going to turn around and run away doing this now because they don't have a hand anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, that's like homebrew rules there on the fly, really, is what you're doing at that point. Just adding little things to the game. I think most homebrew rules that I've seen just add to the game. Especially, Yeah, I don't think there's any rules or rulings I've ever seen that hindered players.
Yeah.
It's most of the time to try to make it fun or overlap a rule in
Mm-hmm.
some way that's in the game.
No, there are definitely rules that hinder players. Like, I know it's in the game, but like keeping track of your rations for travel and your energy for
And
travel.
most people's homebrew rule to that is
No.
no.
Don't worry about it.
That.
Unless, like, honestly, I never keep track of it unless, one, their journey is going to be treacherous,
Yeah.
and there's going to be, like, exhaustion checks, that type of thing, or it's going to be a very long journey, and I go, you guys have 10 days of rations right now, how are you traveling for 80 days? Like,
Yeah.
what are you going to do? Oh, well, I'm a ranger, I can gather as long as the land has it to offer. You're going through a desert.
Yeah. There you go.
How are you getting water? How are you getting food? That type of thing. Well, then, the wizard gets create water, or the druid gets create water, and the cleric has what they can make food, that type of thing.
Oh, yep.
And at that point, it's like, you guys can literally go wherever you want.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's when you get to higher level play. You're not too worried about that kind of thing, though, at that point.
And it also depends on the group. Like some people, they're not interested in keeping track of their resources. They just want to enjoy the story and play their character. And
that's most D&D these days.
Mm-hmm. But I know there's this one third party book. I can't remember who was writing it, but it was nothing but wilderness survival in harsh environments. That's all it was. It was like this thick. It was a big book of, these are the checks you got to make to find game. These are the checks to get the game, that type of thing. Like, do you prepare the food correctly, or is it going to poison you, that type of thing. It was so in-depth.
Yeah.
And that is for people that they are dedicated.
Yeah, they really want to play the survival game.
Yeah.
They want it to be about survival.
And their one session is probably, we've traveled 3 days and cooked food twice, and that was that session, and I'm sure they had a blast doing it, but it's crazy. I couldn't, not me.
Yeah, not me either.
I'll go do that outside.
Exactly. Yeah, not really my kind of favorite game.
Yeah.
Any other homebrew rules you wanted to add on here?
Oh, man, I thought of one before while you were talking about something. I can't remember what it was. Man, it's gone again immediately.
One that I mentioned.
You didn't mention a rule, but you were talking about something, and it just...
Rolling?
Do you allow called shots?
Yes. Yes, I do.
And what do you allow them to do?
You can call the shot to do something specific. Usually it's like a disarm move, or like to get someone to prone position or something like that. And I will just add +5 to the AC.
Okay. And then... on top of that, what about using items, abilities, or spells in special ways to do special things? For example, when I was still in Heather's game, my asshole of a cleric, she described a goblin that had like a nose piercing, like right up here type thing, so I cast light on it. Just a blinding bright light right in front of its eyes. So she went... He's blinded, which I thought was amazing.
Yes, I absolutely would do that kind of thing.
I was just being an asshole.
Yeah, I mean, those are the kind of rules you kind of gotta go on the fly, and you're just like...
That was her first time DMing ever.
Oh, wow. Really being a pain in the ass.
Yep. And I was playing an Aarakocra.
Oh, wow.
You don't gotta give me that look.
Hi, guys. I'm here to be an asshole.
Hello, my name is Asakroka.
Yeah.
But, no. I had fun with that guy. I kind of wish I was still in it, but I mean, it just takes up so much time. But yeah, I was also the person that would fly up and pick up kobolds and fly up and just let go.
Wow. Yeah, there you go. That's some serious damage. Yeah, anything else you want to mention?
Let me do a quick scroll through. I don't think so. But let's go to the very bottom. What's at the very bottom? Vampiric spiders.
Ooh, monsters. That could be a whole different episode, though. I think we could talk about homebrew monsters and changing monsters, flavors of monsters.
An ice tornado spell. Changing up something fun to do for homebrew for people that have been experienced D&D players is just take a pre-written module and change the big bad.
Oh yeah, that's actually really good.
For example, no, you're not in it. You're not in any of my games, asshole. In the game that those two new people are in, I'm doing. They don't realize this, but I'm doing Horde of the Dragon Queen as the starter.
Okay.
But the dragon that was flying over the city,
Yeah.
for one, was. Should I say this on camera?
Oh boy. Yeah, go for it.
Was undead, so it was an undead blue dragon.
Okay.
And the cult of the dragon, everywhere they go that the cult of the dragon has been, everyone's already killed. Like, someone's been through there already, and there's leftover, like, zombies and ghouls every once in a while.
Yes.
So
Zombified Tyranny of Dragons.
it is.
Fuck yeah.
So basically, the way I'm running it is it's a facade of the cult of the dragon, where it's actually a very powerful necromancer trying to do necromancer things through the Sword Coast. But yeah, just make changes like that.
just change the whole campaign.
Well,
but I think it is a good. No, I think that is a good form of homebrew, where you take, especially these modules. You know, taking the module at face value and then turning it around on your players can be pretty difficult. I think, just because it's like you're trying to take in a lot of information, process it, and then turn it around back on people. I think it's easier for you to take it in, process what you already know, plus the book itself, and then spin it and weave it together into something. And that's kind of what I've done with all the campaigns that I'm currently running. Is I've read a bunch of these books, I've put ways to tie them all together, but at the same time I'm doing way other stuff that's not even related to some of these books.
Yeah, like just changing things, I think, is one of the easiest way. Okay, I'm not gonna say easiest. It's
most common, I think.
It's a fun way to add homebrew to a pre-made world.
Yes.
It's not difficult. It takes a little bit of planning.
It does. It does indeed.
Yes, the brothel named Necromancers.
Okay.
This one's fun. A monster that can only be seen in reflections.
And that's actually a good one. I like that, actually. Like almost like an invisible stalker, but only seen in reflections.
Yep, so the opposite of vampires.
Yes.
Well, vampires.
Okay, I think that will take us to the end there. Huh?
Yeah. I have so many things.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I mean. We could keep going and talking about what we got here, but I think the general purpose was to just talk about what we have, how to get there, inspirations, and how to kind of turn your inspiration into something that is homebrew. So if you have any homebrew rules that you implement at your table, that your DM implements for you, or any homebrew at all, you could send that to us. But you can talk about it. We'll take a look at it in the comments.
Or also throw in the comments if you want us to go over more examples. That could be its own episode in itself.
Yeah, we could talk about homebrew monsters, subclasses, classes, spells.
We could do a bring a monster of your own monster that you created.
Coming.
Yep, there we go.
It's coming. Yeah, so don't forget to like and subscribe down below, and have a great day.
And a good game. I saw it.
Every time.
You went, I did the wrong one.
Every time I do it. I switched the last week, last episode I did that too.
And I think I corrected him. I kind of want to